To avoid missing the videos created by our team, which include the latest events and special reports on the Israel war, you can subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and click the Super Thanks button below. The Israeli army continues its war centered on Gaza against Hamas. Intense clashes took place today in the Zaytoun neighborhood, southeast of Gaza City. Israeli bombardment continued to the north and northwest of the Gaza Strip, and to the south and southeast of Gaza City. As the clashes against Hamas continued in the Gaza Strip, the number of their supporters in Tel Aviv, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem began to increase. Beyond this settlement along the borderlines between northern Israel and southern Lebanon, Hezbollah's activities continued to support the attacks of Hamas. In effect, Israel is fighting a comprehensive and challenging war against militias almost everywhere along its borders. While the effects of this war envelop Gaza and the West Bank, Hamas supporters continue to incite clashes in Tarm, in the West Bank. Scores of Hamas sympathizers attacked Israeli soldiers in Kalia, in the northwest of the West Bank. Hamas supporters reportedly carried out attacks against IDF military resources. In other words, in these days, Hamas supporters and members of this group have attempted to expand the war to larger areas. In response to the activities of these supporters, the IDF today launched an incredible series of dawn operations against Hamas members in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. In this critical operation, sympathizers who support Hamas were also targeted by the IDF. At dawn, Israeli forces carried out simultaneous raids on Hamas-occupied buildings, cells, and numerous settlements in the West Bank. The raids began at midnight and lasted until 7 o'clock in the morning, involving at least 100 IDF soldiers and numerous armored vehicles. The raids were also accompanied by a large number of well-equipped soldiers from the Israeli Special Forces. They allegedly included personnel from Shin Bet, Israel's domestic intelligence service. A senior leader of Fatah, Hamas's rival, also surrendered to the Israeli army during the IDF raids. Media sources described the arrest as unusual. The capture of this leader by the IDF will therefore be of great concern to Fatah leaders in Ramallah, also in the West Bank. Overnight raids in the West Bank resulted in the capture of 49 wanted men, 21 of them Hamas affiliates who surrendered without resistance. According to the IDF update, since the start of the war in the Gaza Strip on October 7th, the IDF has captured approximately 1,220 wanted persons in the West Bank, more than 740 of whom are affiliated with Hamas. In addition, at least 137 Hamas combatants have been killed by Israeli forces in the West Bank since October 7th. The IDF is trying to somehow control the situation in the West Bank through such raid operations. If the IDF does not contain the violence and expansionism in the West Bank, in addition to the war in Gaza, Israel could face a full-scale Hamas uprising in the West Bank. This is because Hamas supporters are constantly trying to gather and organize in the region on a daily basis. Before the Hamas attack and the resulting Israeli military offensive in Gaza, the West Bank was already on the brink of a crisis. Armed Hamas militant groups were on the rise and threatened the position of the Palestinian Authority, the semi-autonomous government of the West Bank. The Hamas massacre exacerbated the situation in the region. According to the United Nations, 237 Palestinians and 25 Israelis were killed between January 1st and October 6th this year. The situation in the West Bank is still not fully under control, but as we mentioned, Israeli forces are making efforts to eliminate the threat from there. Most recently, Israeli government spokesperson Tal Heinrich made critical statements. Tal Heinrich stated that they want to maintain order in the West Bank, including East Jerusalem, Judea, and Samaria. But there is another critical area that Israel needs to protect, apart from Gaza and the West Bank. This is Hia and the areas from this city to the southern Lebanese borders. As we told you in the video, these areas are also under threat from the Iranian-backed Hezbollah militia. For this reason, the IDF says that more than 34 settlements have been completely evacuated in the northern Israeli direction. We've already mentioned a third front in the war, with Israel facing clashes with the Iranian-backed Hezbollah militia on its northern border with Lebanon. Iran's plan has not worked for the moment. Hezbollah has been stepping up its attacks on northern Israel, but so far there has been no unpreventable situation. Most recently, Hezbollah claimed to have shot down an Israeli drone with a surface-to-air missile in southern Lebanon, but these claims have not been verified. In response to these allegations, the official national news agencies reported that Israel carried out airstrikes and bombed several areas in southern Lebanon, including near Nakura. It was also reported that the IDF fired 2 missiles from Wadi Kana. In a post on the EEK channel, formerly known as Twitter, the Israeli army announced that it had struck Hezbollah targets in Lebanon after multiple shots were fired from the country towards Israeli territory. So what exactly is the purpose of Hezbollah in northern Israel, and what is this group trying to do? Of course, it goes without saying that Hezbollah supports Hamas and believes that attacks against Israel should continue. But the main factor that we need to pay attention to is the actor behind the curtain that is causing this situation, which is Iran. At the heart of Tan's current policy is the hope that a show of force will deter Israel from destroying Hamas, while at the same time preventing the United States of America from intervening more forcefully on Israel's behalf. On the surface, the plan is as cunning as it is deadly. Tan wants an element of the axis of resistance, a term it uses to describe militias of its own creation or choice to save others. But the strategy could also contain the seeds of Iran's own demise. For example, a more open involvement of Hezbollah, Iran's oldest proxy in the conflict, would mean the ignition of a new northern front. This could significantly weaken Hezbollah, whose arsenal Tan has strengthened as a deterrent against possible Israeli attacks on its nuclear program. Moreover, the escalation of tensions, however gradual, could lead Israel to more clearly connect the dots between the protector and the proxy and hold Tan directly responsible for the October 7th attacks. Iran, the patron of Hezbollah and Hamas, could therefore be faced with a complex decision diplomatically. Iranian officials are keen to show that they cannot be marginalized by calling for an immediate ceasefire. Iranian officials are keen to show that they cannot be marginalized by calling for an immediate ceasefire. Iranian officials also claim to create a political bloc that will give Hamas breathing space. The Iranian foreign minister has met with Turkish, Qatari, and Hamas officials. The chief of staff of the Iranian armed forces is working on the phones for diplomatic relations. Major General Mohammad Hussein Bagheri is in consultations with Russia, Qatar, and Turkey. All these efforts are aimed at politically arresting Israel's military operation and denying America access to Middle Eastern bases. A recent report, quoting 3 unnamed Iranian security officials, claimed that Tan has given the green light to limited cross-border attacks by Hezbollah and low-level strikes against U.S. positions in the region. Already on October 18th and 19th, Iranian-backed proxies used drones and rockets to strike U.S. positions 3 times in Iraq and once in Syria. The attacks continued after that weekend with 24 rocket and drone attacks.